Hello, everyone. How are you tonight? Good evening to you all. My name is Jonathan Banks, and I am your moderator for tonight. It is good to see you all here for the community conversation. We have a wonderful panel here that will be sharing much wisdom and knowledge. So thank you all for being here tonight. We thank you for joining us here at the historical Lincoln Theater. Thank you so much for being here tonight. Thanking Ms. Susan, the executive director of the theater. We also want to thank our sponsors. Community Conversation, Equity in the Arts is made possible in part by the National Endowment of Humanity and the Ohio Humanity. Democracy demands wisdom. Any views, finding, conclusion, or recommendation expressed in this program do not necessarily represent those of Ohio Humanities or the National Endowment for the Humanities. Okay. So we have beautiful moderators here on tonight, and I will be reading their bios, and then the floor will be open. But first, we'll talk a little bit about equity in the arts. Equity in the arts, with an understanding that culture equity is culture in the long-term visibility of the art sector. Gaëtane Verna is the executive director of the Wexner Center for the Arts. Ms. Verna will provide her expertise as an art historian, administrator, and educator with extensive international experience. Equity in the arts. Ms. Verna previously served as the director and art director for the Toronto's The Power Plant Contemporary Art Gallery. She has received many honors, including her 2017 appointment to the Order of the Arts Letters by the French government. Brooke A. Minto is the executive director of the Columbus Museum of Art. As a panelist of Equity in the Arts, Ms. Minto brings her extensive experience working to make art spaces more equitable. Ms. Minto previously served as the director of the Black Trustee Alliance of the Art Museums. She studied art history at Dartmouth College and earned a master's degree in modern art from the Columbia University. She has held leadership positions in institutions nationally and internationally. Demetrius Neely is the executive director and CEO of the King Arts Complex. The KAC is a permanent culture and arts institution and an oasis for cultures, and educational activities that is backed by numerous funders, esteemed by fellow art organizations, and poised for a strong future. She completely transforms the community anchoring organizations from top to bottom. Executive leadership, board alignment, financial stability, donor engagement, brand equity, community programming, talent management, and team certification. Ms. Susan Bradford. Ms. Susan y'all like how I say that? Ms. Susan Bradford continues her remarkable tenure as the executive director of the Lincoln Theater with vivacity that is contagious, with unwavering dedication. She fosters an environment that encourages the introduction and incubation of local artists. Under her visionary leadership, the Lincoln Theater has become a beacon of artistic brilliance, preserving its historical legacy while embracing innovative forms of expression. Ms. Bradford has been a faculty member of the Ohio State University Dance Department for several years. She is a dancer, instructor, and choreographer of the traditional West African dance. She is also the co-founder and artistic director of the Tresan Institute and Dance Company that promotes traditional West African dance, music, and cultures. Shelby Shelton Toon is a seasoned Columbus professional with more than a decade of experience as an exhibiting artist. Program manager, Shelby is a cultivator of the art with a passion for history and storytelling. She currently serves as the project director for the Ohio History Connection Poindexter Village Museum and Art Cultural Center. Shelby is a graduate of the Near East Neighborhood Leadership Academy, the United Way Project Diversity Program, the Lincoln Theater's Expand Your Horizon Incubation Program, whoop, whoop, and the African American Leadership Academy. She currently serves as a vice chair of the Neighborhood Design Center and a board member for the Ohio Alliance for Art Education. Please put your hands together for our panelists. Thank you.
Thank you. Hello. We are in the midst of a historic moment in arts and culture in the city of Columbus. The appointment of women of color to lead our city's beloved arts institutions is cause for great excitement. It signifies a transformative shift towards diversity, inclusion, and fresh perspectives in our cultural landscape. This milestone not only challenges the status quo, but also presents a more vibrant and representative arts community. These milestones represent not only personal triumphs, but also collective victories in dismantling systemic barriers within our art world. Witnessing these achievements is a testament to the resilience, creativity, and sheer determination of individuals who have historically been underrepresented. It signals a shift toward a more inclusive, equitable, and reflective artistic community where the micro-progressive steps of today laid the foundation for the macro-scale transformations in the future. I am honored to be your host today. I'm honored to be your moderator, and I look forward to this meaningful conversation around equity in our beloved Columbus Arts institutions. Our hope is to begin talking and taking a collective strive to connect with one another, understand among members. These conversations promote true unity, informed decision-making, and the collective pursuit of solutions that reflect the community's shared values and aspirations. So, our esteemed panelists here, I have my first question. I'd like to start with Ms. Brooke. Okay. Can you share with us just a brief understanding of your experiences that shaped you being in your current role today? Just a brief understanding of your experiences that have landed you in your current role today.
I'm not sure if this is on. Can you hear me? Let's see. Okay, well, I wonder if I should start. So I'm 6 months into my tenure here at Columbus. I think I'm the newbie on the panel. Forgive me, I'm a little congested, but I'll try my best this evening. Let's see what's brought me here. Most recently, I helped found the Black Trustee Alliance for Art Museums, an initiative that I'm incredibly proud of and one that continues now that I'm here at the museum. And the program was started in the fall of 2020, following a very kind of dynamic summer in this country, with the understanding that museums really needed to be reshaped from the top down. And so I worked with a group of a dozen trustees from some of the biggest museums across the country to galvanize over 200 Black trustees from leading institutions and commission research on the Black trustee experience that we hoped would inform not only the diversification of boards, but then ultimately executive leadership of museums and then content making and programming institutions. I say that to say it's what I spent the last couple of years thinking about in a very deep way after working at museums in New York, Miami, and Louisiana and New Orleans. All communities that I didn't hail from, but that I kind of dove deeply into and made my own, and that have informed sort of my first 6 months in my tenure here in Columbus. I have tried to, as quickly as possible, assimilate into this city, and like you said, that has so many beloved cultural institutions, and not only really like meet the city, but understand the team and all the many stakeholders that have made CMA the really great institution it is, but then also get a quick understanding of what it is we need to do to serve more communities across Columbus and Central Ohio. So I think that's a kind of brief, what I was doing right before I got here and how that culminated, a 20-year career in museums before I came to this space.
Well, I want to say I was a part of the committee that got to give their opinion on who we were looking for.
Yeah.
And we're excited to see you here.
Oh, well, and thank you, thank you, thank you. I should say, just as you mentioned that, I have to recall the process, and many of you that I'm here with tonight, I met during the process, and I have to commend our board and our search committee. I thought they did a phenomenal job in searching for, I think what would ultimately be the next director of the museum. I think they took quite seriously that our last leader had a tremendous tenure and that this was an opportunity for something fresh and different. And I really think they took the fullness of time to have a conversation with as many people across the city as possible. And I felt that as a candidate and was really struck by how many people I could meet in the process and the decision-making process around coming to Columbus. And that really made the difference for me in accepting the position and really the challenge to take this museum into its next chapter.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah. I'm going to shift the same question over to you. Could you give us just a brief understanding of your experiences that landed you in your role today?
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So my first job when I finished my studies was actually running a university art gallery. Mm-hmm. And so I did that for about 8 years. And then I moved into running a museum which had collections from the 14th century up till today, but today was like 2006. And so I did that and was always, within that tenure, was able to, deliver a building project and think deeply about collections and communities. And the institution that I was running was in a community. The Greater Joliette was about 19,000 people, a very vibrant community, and maybe an hour away from, a very important center in Quebec. But what struck me was that there was rather no cultural diversity. Like there were, very few people of color there, but that regardless of this, we were able to bring diverse voices within the conversation of the institution, and that the people actually did not care where artists came from, could connect with the world, whether these artists look like them or not. So this was both my experience at Bishop's University and also at Musée d'Art de Joliette. And then I moved into the power plant in Toronto. Toronto is like 4 million people, a great Caribbean and African diaspora community, and then a non-collecting institution that was, again, an institution that in the inside was very homogeneous and didn't necessarily represent the communities that were surrounding it. And my experience there, again, was how do you change an institution from the inside and from the outside? How do you change its board? How do you diversify in all the areas that are possible? And how do you do the work to build communities within the institution? And when thinking of exhibition making, and working with contemporary artists from Canada and the world. So I come with all of that history and background to the WEX, and very excited about basically coming back to what was my first job, so working in a university. And what I particularly liked about the WEX was the multidisciplinary nature of the institution, having under the same roof film and video, exhibition, performing arts of all kind, and a strong learning and public practice within, a tier 1 research institution within a city of 900,000 people and a region that's very, arts-based. And then seeing how can we as an organization open our doors wide and open to a diversity of communities, and how do you actually convince people to trust you and cross a threshold and come in, not one time, but many times, and feel comfortable coming and going and engaging with the program of the institution. So the idea of the university and the next generation of citizen is something that I hold dear, but also being a bridge to the community.
Thank you. Now, those were the words from our newbies. But we know that traditionally, the King Arts Complex and the Lincoln Theater have always held down BIPOC voices and traditionally have always represented minorities of color. So I'm curious, Miss Susan, what are some of your proudest professional achievements that have shaped your current experience as lead of this institution?
My proudest
Yeah.
and professional?
What are some of your proudest professional achievements? Yeah, here at the Lincoln Theater.
Well, I would say that one of my achievement was just being a part of the selection of people who would run this building. Coming from the YWCA, where I cut my teeth on everything that I know and what I'm practicing here, and then taking a little bit of a sabbatical from the arts and things and moving into provision and treatment, just sort of solidified my purpose and my vision. So kind of unbeknownst to me, I was coming to the Lincoln to find out what the promise was and what it could be. And fortunately, I must have said the right things. So with that, that would be a proud moment for me because I live in this neighborhood, I was raised in this neighborhood, and to be able to come back to this space in this presence that I am now, looking at it through the eyes of a young girl, and now looking at it through the eyes of what my purpose and promise is.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Ms. Demetrius, the King Arts Complex has been our beloved center for decades. Could you share with us your proudest professional achievement that has shaped your current experience as lead of that institution?
Oh, wow. So can you hear me? I want to give a little bit of a backdrop because unlike my lovely peers on the stage, my route is a little non-traditional. So I am from an arts family. I play the piano. My mom was a piano teacher. My sister is a thespian. My brothers are artists. So from an arts family, I've always loved the arts. I'm a lifelong lover of the arts. However, I didn't work in the arts before the King Arts Complex. I was on the board at the King Arts Complex for 11 years, and we had a leadership change, and my board asked me if I would step in this role, and I said, no, I don't want to do that. No, no, I don't want to do that. I was actually moving to Atlanta, put my house on the market, was selling my house and moving to Atlanta, and so I said, okay, I'll do it for 6 months, but you got to do a search, because it won't be me. That was 11 years ago. Wow. So I, fell in love with the work. And one of the things I think that made me really want to stay was my background is operations and running a business. And when I saw our institution and how we had been run, which is a beautiful arts institution, and artistically, beautifully, I felt there was an opportunity to hone some of the business skills that I'd learned. And so I brought them to bear, and I would say my most proudest achievement probably is on that side of the fence, which is getting the King Arts Complex stabilized financially and being sustainable for a long period of time, getting a national recognition by the Wallace Foundation for financial sustainability, one of 6 blacks in the country, institutions that got that recognition. And so I'm very proud of that because it's not easy. It is not easy running a nonprofit. It is not easy keeping your books straight. And one of the things that we've done, and this is not necessarily a proud moment, but it was a necessity, is that we're incredibly lean. But it got us through the pandemic without any layoffs and any pay cuts. And I'm very proud of that because we don't make a lot of money in the arts community, and especially in this side of it. When with the Black community is like this. When we're coming out of recession, it takes a year to come out of recession. Maybe for the wider community, well, it takes us like 3 or 4 times that long. So when things are hurting for us, it hurts more because of systemic racism and years of not having fair footing. So for me, I'm very proud of the fact that we got through the pandemic without a hiccup at all, and that we're financially sound. And I think about many of our presidents have been lawyers. President Biden's a lawyer, President Obama was a lawyer, President Clinton was a lawyer. But they don't rely on their law practice, their law acumen to do, they hire an attorney general. So in my case, we hire artists that help us figure out the art piece, and I run the operations side. And while I have some artists, acumen, it's not the same as artists. So it's great. I think the other thing about it is great because I'm an analytical and artists are not. And so we kind of drive each other crazy, but it works, right? It's 2 different sides of the brain. But I'm really proud of that. The other thing I'll say I'm real proud of is the work we did around harder protests. So George Floyd happened, and I just want to say this about that. It's like I'm wearing this T-shirt today. I always wear black. Everybody knows I wear, maybe if you don't know it, I wear a black dress and a black blazer all the time. But because we have these 4 powerful Black women on this stage, I wanted to wear this T-shirt, which is 4 powerful Black women that have really set the pace of history for Black people in this country. So I think about Harriet Tubman, 400 years ago, she would have been 200 last year, and all the way down to Angela Davis. But I say that to say that we have always had a quest for equity. That we had it for 200 years when we were enslaved Africans, and we've had it for 200 years since, and we're still there. And I think about what we have to do at the King Arts Complex, and it's never lost on me that we do it sitting under the gaze of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, and then the imperative that's on us for social equity.
Yeah, and that's why it's called the King Arts Complex.
Yes.
It has both sides. That's wonderful. As we move forward, there is a tangible enthusiasm for the stories and viewpoints and creative manifestations that arise from the vibrant mosaics of diverse experiences. What have you observed about your institution's current relationship with local BIPOC artists and audiences, and what strategies have you found effective in engaging with local BIPOC artists and audiences? I will ask Ms. Gaëtane.
Thank you. I would say I'm, year 1 in a few days. I think when you look at and it's good because the institution in 2024 will be celebrating 35 years, and it's so interesting. We're all delving into the archives of, what films have been shown, what artists have been shown, and the WEX throughout its last 34 years has really presented a really diverse program. From Kerry James Marshall to so many filmmakers like John Acumpha, who's going to be representing the UK at the next Venice Biennale. When I told him I was going to the WEX, he's like, I've worked with the WEX. So the WEX has worked with so many musician artists, performance artists that are culturally diverse. And so I think the institution has done a really great job at this, but I would say we need to do more, because it's not, I always tell the team, it's not just programming diverse artists, it's also how do you nourish a community that trusts you, that comes back time and time again, and then to see it also as an evolution, because there's different generations who are going to require different things from the institution. So, but I do think that when we look at the work that's been done in our learning and public practice department, they've systematically, thought outside the box on how to reach the Black community through different programs, and also how to give opportunities for career growth to artists as well as arts professionals. So how can we be the space that allows people to learn through their association with us? And I would say that for me, one of the things that I think is really important is how do we also diversify the team inside the organization? Because it's all very nice to invite artists that are culturally diverse to come and show, but then people also want to see themselves as gaining a certain future and an agency within the organization to be at the table to make those choices.
I'm glad to hear you say that. We definitely look forward to just the changes and the perspective that you and all these ladies bring with being able to make those kinds of decisions. So I'm so glad to hear you say that. Can I direct the question to you? What have you observed about your institution's current relationship with BIPOC artists and audiences, and what strategies have you found effective in engaging with local BIPOC audiences in Columbus?
So I'm diving deep into all of our programming, but something I've been thinking quite a lot about recently as I've been reinstalling our collection is our vast holdings of work by Elijah Pierce and Mina Robinson. I know you all
that
know
gets me
Amina
excited.
well.
Yeah.
And I'm disappointed that I never had the opportunity to meet her.
Yeah.
But we do have, the largest collections of their work at CMA, and we were very fortunate to be the beneficiaries of her estate. So we not only have all the work that was left in her estate, but also manage and maintain her home, which the museum renovated not too long after she passed. So I think the opportunity with our home is that we can invite in fellows and residents from Columbus, but also nationally through a national call, to spend part of the year in residence in her house, get to know her legacy and what her role was in the community here, how she worked as an educator, as an artist, and how she really kind of mentored multiple generations of creatives here in Columbus, and share that legacy with makers who come and spend time in the space. And then from there, present their work. The fellows and the residents who go through the program have the opportunity to present their work at the museum or in a curated project by one of the museum's curators. So for me, the last couple of months, I've been thinking a lot about that program. We're now on our second artist in the program since I've arrived, and I'm really struck by the quality of work that's being made, and the opportunity that the museum offers artists to just gain more visibility around what they do, and in some cases, to be acquired by the museum. We have made acquisitions from that program. So I think that's something I'm going to spend more time on in the months to come, and there's a couple of different answers for that, but it's really been top of mind for me because we're right now installing one of the residents' work in the museum, and I'm just really motivated to really promote that program more and make sure that it's highly regarded amongst residency programs nationally, and that we're able to bring a really interesting group of artists to Columbus to learn more about what's happened here over the decades, and then to take the legacy of Amina back out into the world and inform what they do.
So can I
Yeah,
reply to
go
that
ahead.
too? So really just on a local basis here, many of the programs that we have here at the Lincoln Theater, we have 9 signature programs. 4 of them is about artist development and really taking local artists and having them shift their perception about being an artist and saying to themselves, I am an artist, and be able to provide opportunity and creating opportunities for them, one, to learn how to be an artist, and learning that and how to value their work. So we have the Artist Production Development Workshop that just introduces the artists, the local artists, on just the details from production planning to legalities, to marketing, to insurances. And they don't usually think about that when they're creating in their homes, in their basements, right? And so when they come out and they have these wonderful pieces of artwork and expression, and someone says, oh, that's good, they're like, what? Not even a great thank you can come out because they're not seeing themselves as artists. So over the last 10 years, the Expand Your Horizon Incubation Program has graduated 135 artists locally who now believe they are artists. And also, thank you. So it's very important that these programs shift, that they have to be, that their work has to be a hobby, that their work can be valued, their work can be bought, that can, not just in the visual arts, but also in theater and dance and music. So our backstage program, our Club Lincoln, this program here gives them that opportunity to polish their work and then to perform with their work. And then now what we're seeing is the what next. And so our corporations are looking for our artists to come and be a part of their associates programs and events.
Well, since you kind of already answered, but I would be curious to hear you answer this one. What challenges have you encountered in your efforts to promote BIPOC artists in representation in the arts, and how have you addressed them? You kind of did that, but I wondered if there was another, what your...
Well, you know, we sit in a very historical place, and the voices are still here, right? And they tap in my ear oftentimes when I'm here alone or doing the work about what needs to happen and what needs to be done. And so the challenges, of course, is just in the building of the renovation. Why invest in that building? Why it's been sitting for 30 years, it's dilapidated. Why would you even do that, right? So in those conversations is that the historical sense and the culture that resonated from this building was worth saving. The arts that came out of this building was worth saving. And from that, it's not something that everyone can visualize, you know. And so during that renovation, we found a lot of historical facts that permeated the reason why, you know, and asked the question why. And so from then, you know, we opened the building, Tuskegee Airmen right here in this space, Etta James on the stage, James Brown on the stage, Count Basie, Miles Davis in this space. Being the gatekeeper and being the guard for that voices that were in here is very important. So that's a challenge in itself because we know history, but history doesn't always, we don't always allow history to guide us, right? We know that it's there. We know that it has some significance, but it's not our guiding force. And so for me, it is my guiding force here, right? And so it allows me to have both the innovation and the nostalgic, to be able to create spaces for artists here and to bring in other ones. I mean, although we have national artists come here, I whisper in their ear and say, you know, Miles Davis been here, right? For the ones, you know, Etta James played here, so you're not stepping into a whole big space that you feel like you are just capturing. Folks from the past, the nostalgicness, the greats have been here before, so you might want to step up your game on that. But just be able to share that history because people like that and want to be in that same space, but also bringing in the innovative part to it is the survival of what we're doing, the survival of this building. And so when they come in and they see the decor, they automatically are engaged in history. And when they see, you know, the locals here on the stage, then they're encouraged to support local artists. So challenges on all levels, not just in creating space for artists, but also the funding, also structure, also vision and strategy plans, you know, about how to do that coming from a straight creative space, and saying it's important that we fund it. It's important that the vision is supported, no matter how that might make them feel. Right. Yes.
Yeah, thank you. Ms. Demetrius, can you share your institution's effort in promoting diversity and inclusion in the arts, particularly in relation to BIPOC communities?
Sure, but I want to piggyback on what Brooke and Susan just said. You know, space matters, and I think, you know, it's always in my head. Amina would always say, artists need a place to do art. They need a place to do art. And so the King Arts Complex, the Lincoln Theater, the Columbus Museum, the Wexner, these are sacred places in our community. And our artists revere an opportunity to get to these places to do art. But opportunity needs access. And so I think it's incumbent upon us, and I know that these ladies are doing it, to eliminate barriers so that access is available, because you cannot get the opportunity without access. One of the things we're doing at the King Arts Complex, in addition to the great ideas that have been shared, is we have artist studio space where artists can come in, and they're getting it at a deep, deep, deep family discount. Like deep, deep. Whatever you might imagine, cut that by 1/6, and it's cheaper than that. And it's our pleasure to do it. It's our honor. I feel like we are duty bound to do this because, again, Amina's in my head saying artists need a place to do art. And it's such a sacred place because Amina Robinson's first art studio was the King Arts Complex. And so when an artist goes in that art studio, much like Susan is saying, they're like, this was Amina's first studio? Oh my goodness, I have to treat this special. And they have 24-hour access to their studios, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. So for an artist, that's really important because the inspiration comes when it comes, right? It's not 9 to 5 necessarily, Monday through Friday. So to have that opportunity is, I think, pretty special. Challenges. I think, is that what you asked me about? Did you ask me about challenges? I'll share some.
You just shared, can you share your institution's effort in promoting diversity?
That is one of our efforts. That is one of the biggest efforts. But the other thing I'll say that happens at the King Arts Complex in terms of promoting diversity is just the programming that is open to ages 9 months to 99. We have a senior programming called First Tuesday Tea, where first Tuesday of every month, seniors come for tea and lunch, free to them. It's always oversubscribed. We have, unfortunately, have to turn people away. And it is an opportunity for seniors to socialize with each other. And you'll hear people saying, I haven't seen you since the 3rd grade. Things like that literally happen. And we know that one of the problems in America right now as we age is social isolation. And so we're helping seniors get access to the arts. It's always an arts program, free lunch, and opportunity to socialize. So I think that's another thing that we're doing because we can't not forget about grandma and them.
Okay, I'm gonna read this. It says, there are more director transitions in the field now than ever. Minto says during a September interview at her office in CMA, 4 months after her new role, I think a lot of that has been accelerated by 2020 and just a feeling that museums need to think about communities that they serve and support more broadly. Are they serving all communities in their region? And what does the leadership look like at those institutions? How is the leadership defining programming, mission, and vision in such a way that all communities feel they are a part of the institution and its future? Miss Brooke Minto said that in the Columbus Monthly, yes.
2 months ago.
So I wanted to ask you to elaborate and define in your words what equity is in the arts.
Well, we're not there yet. And I do think in many ways it's context specific. I think, the metrics that we use to measure our success at it vary. Lately, I've been thinking a lot about just the census here, as I get to know the city of Columbus and Franklin County and what our sort of racial mix is, I'm still assimilating. What's the racial mix here? What will it look like when our attendance, for example, mirrors the population of the city? Mm-hmm. And then how will we then, in a realistic way, translate those measures to our programming? I'm not there yet, right? But I know we don't yet reflect our community. And it's, takes a concerted effort, not only across programs, but also in thinking about how we grow our team. Over the next 2 years plus, the museum is going to grow a tremendous amount. We're building our curatorial team, building our learning teams. Many people have retired at the museum over the last several years. So I'm thinking very conscientiously about, those hires and who the programming teams will be going into the future and what experiences they bring, what guides them sort of principally as they're programming. as we kind of work towards making a more balanced offering at the museum. So it's a complex answer, but I'm sort of learning as I go, this particular institution and this particular city, and really trying to create a greater balance. The other piece that's really dynamic is that Columbus is growing so fast. I spent my first 90 days hearing all about this growth trajectory that we're on, and the sort of million people that we can expect, another million people by 2030, I think. So, economic development is exciting and transformative, but it also means whatever we think our community is right now is about to shift and change. And a tremendous amount of that change is not only, economic sort of transplants, but also newcomers to the US. I'm first generation American. I think all the time about how that has defined my life and my American experience, and how I want our institution to receive new Americans who are on a journey, immigrants to the Central Ohio region, who this is their first place that they've lived in America, and what they think about cultural institutions. Do they find them a place that are welcoming, a place where they begin to build their identity as new Americans? So I say that to say we're shifting, and it's something that I think will need continuous attention as we grow the institution, and I'm really sensitive to that as I think about who we put in place at the museum to make those decisions.
It's exciting stuff. May I direct my next question to Ms. Gaëtane? What makes a good advocate? What is the relationship between art and activism, and what are some ways that your institution is creatively advocating for change?
Well, I would say that creating a space where artists can actually speak their voices and feel that the institution is of service to them as creating a platform. It's very interesting. During the pandemic, the Wexner Center staff decided to unionize, and a lot of the staff told me that what was the catalyst was a talk that was given at the Wex, where a filmmaker and a permanent artist, the talk was talking about, social justice, and that gave them the catalyst to think of that, right? So it's very interesting to see how, even from staff internally to the public, what is being said or shared through the works of artists that we present has an impact on people's lives. So how can we as an institution be a safe space for artists? And I really believe that, our role is really to support the work of artists, and then to be the bridge between the voices of artists and community, and that to be a platform where there's many, many different voices, finding a place to express themselves. And then our job is also to make it possible for communities to be there on the forefront, to listen, to hear, to be informed. And how does the work or the voice of artists, who are each individuals, they don't represent everything, but how do these voices then resonate in the audience's personal lives on an everyday basis? How does it enlighten us, and how do we fill our cup with the work that artists do, and then carry it forward in our everyday lives? So for me, that's how the institution should show up for how we support artists.
Well, it's no secret that there are several inequities in the arts: accessibility and inclusion, racial, ethnic disparities, gender disparities, diversity, and underrepresentation. Ms. Demetrius, where do these inequalities show up in your landscape? Where do these inequalities show up in the landscape of your community?
Wow. So I would say, there have been eras of the African American experience, and the first era, of course, becoming enslaved Africans, taken from Africa to be in this country. And first commodity trade on Wall Street is an enslaved African. First commodity trade on Wall Street is a person, enslaved African. And then the 200 so years of bondage, and the inhumanity, and then we go to, Reconstruction, and then, we are free. The physical shackles are lifted, but not really. And so here we are living in this system of racism 200 years after that. And then you have, Reconstruction, you have civil rights era, and then you have pre-George Floyd, I would say. And then there's the George Floyd, which, the conversation was, is it a moment or a movement? I would say it was a moment. If we didn't know then, we know now. And then, post-George Floyd, which we're in. And then there's the D&I era, D&I, is it an idea? It's an idea for some. And there's some that it's a strategy. But if you look like me and in these institutions, it's a way of life. It's not really about diversity. It's about how we dismantle these inequities, how we create access, how we dismantle barriers. And so that's kind of the way I look at it. And so now this system is here, and then these inequities present themselves in every way in our lives. And so that's why the thought is, I think about, James Baldwin said, so I'm an African-American woman, we named ourselves African-American, unlike, many names we've had, we didn't give ourselves. And I am a conscious woman. So according to James Baldwin, I live in a constant state of rage. And actually that is true, oftentimes. And I can laugh about it because I am equipped with what it takes to get me in and out of that stage of rage. However, most of us are not. And because we are not, that's why racism is a health crisis. So that's a long-winded way of saying the inequities present themselves in all forms, in all ways. And so I just gave you that brief history to say this is how we arrive here. And we are duty bound. It is incumbent upon us to do what we can to dismantle that where it exists and try to mitigate if we can, or if not, find ways to at least have a conversation. Find ways for people to at least begin. I think everyone has all these conversations with people that are on one side or the other. But the point is to have the conversation, to begin talking about it, to begin the ideation, and then maybe you can get to the next step. So I think what we try to do at the King Arts Complex, and what all our institutions try to do, is just try to meet people where they are and see what we can do to try to dismantle some of this stuff and get us. The arts have a way to help us traverse life. The arts, if you think about the arts, and I'm sorry, this is a long-winded response, but if you think about the arts during COVID, so what's the one thing that was a mitigator during COVID? In my mind, it was the arts. Because while we were, held captive in our houses and couldn't go to the grocery store and all that, you could watch a movie. And while you were watching the movie, you were not thinking about being, isolated in your home. You could dance around your house. You could listen to music. All those things helped us. And so I think that's what I think about the arts. While we're dealing with all these tough issues, we use the arts to help us get to the next.
I agree. I agree. Art has definitely been the healing force, for everything. I mean, look at how we, as a city, chose to deal with it. We use the arts. So my next question is for both of you. Okay. What specific steps has your institution taken or planned to take to address historical and systemic inequalities in the arts? Susan, you want to go first?
Yes. I'll go first. Just on what Demetri is saying, we know that arts balances the energy of the world. We also know that arts play a pivotal role in the journey to social justice. Just to put an ending on what she's saying there. So as we're talking about these, say it one more time for me. Inequalities that we face. Mm-hmm. Yes. So again, we're looking at this historical place, and the inequalities is what those past artists dealt with every day. Those were the challenges that they had, but yet they still begin to travel and perform at a level of excellence. They didn't really let those inequalities stop them. And so as we look at their journeys and we look at how their work got us to where we are now, here in the Lincoln Theater, I'm always just inspired to say, hey, I'm pushing the envelope, right? We are our own institution. We're not set up like the other institutions around here. And so with that, what is best for the Lincoln? What is the essence of the Lincoln? And it was served as a catalyst to really catalyze the creativity in our community, to be that beacon of hope, right? And I'm pulling all this from our mission statement. And to be the incubator of artists, and also to be the center for high quality talent. So all of that, as we know, arts is going to be always going to be integrated with inequities, because people want to put their own value on what art is. They want to put their own opinion on what's acceptable, what's not. They want to create a template and a routine and a journey about what's right and how to create. We as Black artists don't do that. We as Black artists take our creation, put it on paper. You guys know this from incubation, and how we move it to the stage or whatever space that we're going to present it in. It's very important that in addressing these equities, that we understand the past, we understand what our calling is, we understand what our strengths are, to be able to push this agenda. So for me, as the first Black person here at Lincoln Theater, as their general manager and moving to their executive directorship, is to stay focused on what the purpose is and to stay mission-driven in our programs. So if the access that we just talked about is not here, then I have to open these doors. I have to open these doors when COVID hits, with all the COVID procedures, and create a space for these people to come to. So they're at home, but they want to come to the Lincoln. Miss Susan, I just want to write. Miss Susan, I got this song. Can I bring some people on the song? Put the mask on, you can come to the song, right? But people are saying, no, don't do that. Great, they're crazy to do that, right? But they needed that space. And so when we talk about access, we talk about education, and we talk about, how do we present these artists where they are, right? Because if we look at it, Kahindi Wiley, Amanda, they started on their local level. And now they're being the first namers around here. So if our artists in Columbus can have that space to do that, then we're talking about access. When we go into the other level about funding, grant writing, who's going to support the artists? Demetrius, me and you, we know this conversation. We already support Lincoln, or we already support King Arts Complex, right? So we done our deed for Black funding in one organization. We can't put y'all together. We can't give both of y'all the same kind of money, right? And so then that's part, because what she's doing, what we're doing, yes, it's in the same space, but we have our own mission in what we're doing here.
But they might find momentum in the ballet.
Say it again?
They might find momentum in the ballet.
Right, they might do that. But then we have those inequities about that funding. We have is our incubation program just for Black artists? Well, that's who needs the access. There's the Black artist who needs the access. Do we have spaces and who we put on the stage? And who we educate? The Lincoln Theater is about educating Black artists and giving them platform to do that. So if it makes people uncomfortable, move your feet back. So as we're talking about these inequities, they are self-proclaimed. They're systematic. And I come from a lineage, and I'll just say this because my mother's here, right? I come from a lineage who resists conformity. And as artists, we can't always work in this silo of greatness. if we are conformed in these small spaces and not be able to create? What the world would be without artists?
By the way, the reason I said Momentum and the ballet, those are majority both ballet companies in town, so I bet they don't get the same conversation.
Right.
I'll repeat the question for you.
Sure.
What specific steps has your institution taken or plan to take to address historical and systemic inequities in the arts?
So when I arrived at the museum, I got kind of scrubbed into a lot of the idea work that had happened in the years leading up to my arrival. I think like many institutions, we have an idea committee that's a subcommittee of our board, but unlike other board committees, it is comprised of staff, community members, and board members. And it's unusual in that constitution, but it allows for, all of these groups to kind of come together and really kind of share their perspectives on the museum, who are we reaching, who are we missing, and what do we need to do differently. And it's one of really the only opportunities, really formally and systematically, that we can ask outsiders or other parts of our community to really help appraise what we're doing. So I kind of have been sitting on that work for the last several months and getting to know what the group has done, what recommendations they've made, and then trying to bring my experience, especially from BTA, into the process. I feel strongly that until our board is more diverse, the rest of our work will be just too heavy a lift. And so I think my influence on this group will be to sort of take their recommendations and make them manifest at the governance level of the institution. We just in the last month added 3 more diverse candidates to our board, and we'll continue to over the next years. But I really feel strongly that and it wouldn't be the case if I hadn't done this work for the last couple of years and really understood at a level of research how important board leadership is to an institution. That's kind of the next step for me. How do we get the board looking like what we need it to look like, and then ultimately the staff. So I think at an institutional level, that's the structure that we've really got to refine to see the change that I think many of us want to see at the museum.
Exciting stuff. In celebrating and anticipating these milestones, there is a recognition that there's a recognition that every step contributes to a broader collective march toward a more equitable and diverse creative landscape. It is a journey marked by resilience, passion, and unwavering belief that art has the power to reshape perspectives, foster empathy, and drive meaningful social change. Ms. Gaëtane, can philanthropy shape equity in the arts? And is it a benefit? Can philanthropy shape equity in the arts, or is it to what the philanthropist wants?
It's a very good question. I think it's both, I would say that I always saw myself as both. Philanthropy is about trust. It's about, and I also added education into it, and very much saw my role, because often I was the only one in the room, to not be afraid to state the obvious and to present to my board, and I'm not talking about the board of the Wexner Center for the Arts necessarily, but as a thought process, that if I was going to lead an institution and carrying who I am everywhere, anytime I step out, then they had to understand that the programming of the institution would be diverse, that the audience that I would want to bring would be diverse, and that we would together, because governance and philanthropy shape an institution, we would together shape this institution. And so at the end of the day, it's like it was my role to advocate for the program that I was interested in bringing, my role to advocate for the dollars that these people were giving to the institution to go to these projects, and to also teach them about inequities and for them to understand what, for some of them, was not even in their periphery, because why would it be part of their narrative? And I must say that one of the things that really was very surprising, but was the sum of the work that I had done over 10 years at the power plant, is by the time the tragic events of the death of George Floyd happened, a lot of the community that surrounded the power plant, which was diverse and that was supporting with their own dollars the institution and its program, they were very well equipped to understand what a lot of them said. Because of the work that you enabled us to support throughout these 10 years, we understood what the people were saying and why the death of George Floyd was so important. So their support of artists that often did not look like them, program that one could say would not necessarily resonate in their own lives, became part of their understanding of their role as philanthropists. And for me, it was really early on when there were two instances. One where I was presenting an exhibition about hip hop and Aboriginal culture, and somebody made a comment about whether this exhibition was something that was not fitted to the power plant, which was a contemporary institution. Then it made me think that my job was also to bring artists to the board so the artists could speak of their work, so that the board members would learn also. And then another time I was presenting a work by Steve McQueen on Paul Robeson, just to realize that many people did not know who Paul Robeson was. So instead of being appalled and, mad, I just thought, oh, my job is to teach these people also. And then for them to see that their dollars, their philanthropy, was supporting initiatives that sometimes they didn't know about, but then when they saw the success of it, and again, third-party validation is the best validation, when they saw that, for instance, they supported an artist like John Akamfra to be presented at the power plant, and then suddenly, later on, they're like, oh, there's a show at the New Museum. And we're in Canada, so they look to New York, and they see a show at the New Museum. They see MoMA's acquiring an artwork. They see the artists in the world. They go, oh my God, we're really good. Like we are thinking, yeah. But this was also about me not being afraid to insist on the art that I knew, or I'm not telling you that I knew that John Akamfra would become an important artist, but I believed in the validity of the work. I believed in what the work, how meaningful the work needed to be presented in that community, and for them with their dollars to trust me and to support, and then to see results also. Because it's not just saying, believe me, there needs to be measurable impacts and a diversity of impacts, whether it is in the recognition of the artist, the population that comes, the support, and that's where I think that we have a responsibility to teach, convince, inform people who choose to give us money to trust us, and for them to see the tangible results of their financial engagement, because we will change the scene together. That's with philanthropy and with our idea, and not to be afraid to say, oh, I'm Black, they're all white, should I only be showing a lot of Black artists and doing it? To the point that some people started saying that it always made me laugh. They would say, always behind my back, but that the power plant has become the Black power plant, Yeah. But I'm like, yeah, the Black power plant is full. It's doing really well. It's well funded. It's got good programs. Got good people. So we cannot be afraid to speak our truth, especially when we're put in position, supported in position of quote unquote power or agency. That's the moment that you push the door wide open. But by always being mindful, like Demetrius was saying, about fiscally responsible being able to manage impact. So to answer present, because you don't want people to start thinking that it's not of value.
I agree.
And can I
think-
say this
yeah.
about put in position? We all earned these positions.
Oh.
So not put in position, to your point, not put in
Yeah, yeah,
position, we earned these positions, so,
Yeah.
and unapologetic about saying that.
Sorry.
No, I was just going to agree that I think philanthropy at its best is a partnership. And as much as our institutions are evolving, I do think foundations are as well. I think we've also benefited from being in this period where phenomenally the Ford and Mellon Foundations, two of the biggest in this country, are led by people of color. And because they are leading in that space, people are listening. And so, it's all trickling down to small and mid-sized regional institutions. I think they're all thinking much more thoughtfully about how they fund. And also private individuals. I serve on a private family foundation board. I had a board meeting this afternoon, that was founded post-George Floyd. And I hate that we have to use him as a marker, but I think it was like a wake-up moment for so many of us in this country and internationally. But it was founded after that moment by collectors, now philanthropists, who are dedicated to this work. And they were motivated to start their foundation to be able to impact the museum community in a particular way. And so I'm on the board with all curators and arts administrators of color. I think there's one white artist on the board. Everyone else is someone of color, informing this very kind of wealthy family on their first grant-making programs. And one is to mid-career artists, BIPOC curators, and then advanced career artists. And they want to fund at critical stages. But I say this to say, the whole ecosystem around what we do is in transition as much as we are. These are folks who are deeply affected by the events of 2020, who want to make a difference, and who are saying, okay, we're going to craft a mission and a vision for our family foundation that moves the needle. And so I think this wouldn't have happened 5 or 10 years ago. So I think ideally, if you can find partners like this, and more funders are becoming sophisticated to the changing needs of museums and their leaders, that can happen. We were fortunate to get one of, I think, 65 Art Bridges grants this year to support access. So for 3 years, Art Bridges, a foundation in Arkansas, founded by the Walmart family, will continue to keep Sundays free at CMA. And this is a foundation that set out to do this. We were one of 65 institutions, I think, to benefit from it. So they're getting it, and they're changing the way that they fund and the way that they partner with institutions. They're hearing what we need. So I think it's happening. But I think we also have the opportunity to shape those funding programs and say, here's what we need, and get responses that are in our favor.
I agree. I'm glad to hear you say that. Did you want to answer or speak to anything about that? I'll pass. Okay. Well, I have a question for you. In what ways can arts institutions collaborate to ensure that the arts are accessible and inclusive for everyone?
Well, again, I believe that collaboration comes through access, not just for spaces, places, supplies. I think that collaborating with one of the projects that I have here at the Lincoln is a LEO program where it's called the Lincoln Engagement Opportunities. And so I'm speaking to the audiences of corporation and saying to them that their associates, who is the landscape of their diversity, welcome support. And so if we tap into their artistic spaces as their associates, then I think that in turn, they will become more will grow their allegiance to their particular organization. So I'm saying to the corporations, here's the opportunity to use local artists who have been groomed and polished and are ready to share their craft inside of your organizations, inside of your corporations, to build that. And so, of course, giving that a certain level will afford you these wonderful professional artists who sits in your community and who look like your associates. And from that, that will allow us to continue these programs that we're doing to polish Columbus-based artists, to be able to have an experience and exposure to what we're doing, not surface, look at that, we use this artist and this is great, but to have them move in a consistency of their art making and what they can bring to that. So that has been a little bit of a challenge, because as we are talking to some of these corporations, they get it, it's nice, it's okay, but they're not really willing to commit at that level. So that is one of the collaborations that I think can address some of that on not just one level, but on multiple levels. I think as we are, as the women who are sitting here today, just in our prior conversation coming down, we're learning more and more about what it is that we can do to collaborate. Demetrius and I are here, and our new sisters are coming in with new lenses and lenses that we want. All of those will come together and focus. Then, you know, that's an aesthetic to really recognize and look at. And to say that, you know, Columbus has these major organizations and agencies led by Black women who have vision, who have purpose, who have experience, who have power, and to be able to bring all this together. So when we're looking at those collaborations, it's really about what's best for Columbus and the art landscape. And if we are the ones to be the visionaries to do that, as you said, Gaëtane, trust. Trust. We didn't just get here yesterday. Huh? We know what we're doing. Right? And so as we come together as these visionaries about how to move Columbus forward, and not just in the diversity and the inclusion, because we've been doing that since we've been doing this work. The Lincoln Theater is that catalyst for D&I because it was built for segregation as addressed to that. So we know that each one of our spaces have opportunity and collaborative efforts to bring this together and to really move the needle of Columbus's art scene, because it was very stale some years ago, right? And now, when you add color, and not necessarily people of color, but when you add color to everything, it's more beautiful.
Well, on that note of collaboration, we probably should ask everyone to save the date, Gaëtane, for next September. CMA and the Wex will present the work of Ming Smith, an artist who was raised here in Columbus and is now based in New York, and over the last decade won lots of critical attention that was hard fought, you know. She's a photographer. She was, in 1979, the first Black photographer to be collected by the Museum of Modern Art in New York and to enter into their permanent collection. Columbus was her home until she left for college, and we will invite her back next year for her first solo presentations in this city ever, between our two institutions.
If I may add, also one of the things that we're also working on is doing this kind of, you know, you're in Berlin, there's a Berlin weekend. So we really want to bring people to Columbus to see the exhibition in each of our organizations, but also to partner with the whole community so that people get a sense of what else is in Columbus, you know? We're talking to this group called the Cultivists so that they come with their people, Art Noir, which is based in New York, to come so that we can, you know, so we will be calling on all of us to partner together so that when people are here, we can, you know,
show the city.
Yeah, show the city as a whole with all of the great things that are happening so that when people, I think the more people know the vibrancy of the art scene here, when they come to Columbus, they get to go see other things. So it's not only coming for one thing, but there's a diversity and a multiplicity of voices because, you know, we will succeed together.
Can I say something about collaboration? So I think, here's the thing about collaboration. You just asked, and most of the times it is met with an enthusiastic yes. we asked the symphony to partner with them on the Christmas symphony, the Christmas program they do at Christmas time. The symphony they do at Christmas time. I can't talk. And it was an enthusiastic yes, so we brought Kwanzaa to the symphony. And that was incredibly well received. So if you don't know what Kwanzaa is, most people here I'm sure do, but it is a traditional African-American tradition celebrated between December 26th and December 31st, and it is celebrating various principles like collective work economics and purpose and all, several important principles in our culture. So we brought it to the Ohio Theater, and I would say it's never going to be the same. The audience loved it. The applause was tremendous. But I think what Susan said is you just bring color to it, and it was wonderful. We also do a collaboration on Saturday with the every Saturday with Ballet Met. We bring kids who will never get an opportunity to dance on Ballet Met stage. We bring them to the King Arts Complex, and they get exposed to the ballet. And sometimes those kids go on to dance on the Ballet Met stage. So I think you just ask, and most of the times you will get a yes.
For sure. The presence of women in leadership brings invaluable perspectives and diversity to the creative process. As we witness this historic opportunity, we celebrate not only their individual accomplishments, but also the collective step toward a more inclusive, equitable, and inspiring future for the arts in Columbus. Are you sure you don't have any questions for these women?
While you're thinking, thank you, everyone, for spending
All
your
right.
Monday evening with us.
Yes.
Rebel, I'm Rebel. I don't want to go in front of the camera, but I will dance. I'm instructing. I will kind of revisit one of your questions, Shelby, because it was a brilliant one, but it wasn't answered. And I will ask Director Bradford and Director Neely, because you all have been in your roles longer. Much of today's conversation has been around racial equity, but we know that equity expands right beyond that, that there are Black artists who are also queer and gender expansive. There are Black artists who are also experiencing disability. There are Black artists who have varied religious beliefs. So I'm curious about how the Lincoln and the KAC are working to build equity among Black artists who also experience or who are members of other protected classes, right? So sex and gender, ability, disability, and religious observance particularly.
Thank you, Taisha, for revisiting that. Some of the efforts that we've done just pretty much this week in supporting Black artists here is that on Thursday, we welcomed the inspirational artist B. Slade. And inside of his program, he did some gospel music as well, but at the end of his performance, he more or less did an altar call. And so we didn't really put those parameters on artists and what they want to bring to the Lincoln when we book them here, and even in renters who are here. Also in that there's another one that we just did recently to just address that. Again, backstage at the Lincoln, we had the local artist, Jordage, and he identifies in his realm of his preference, and so the audience was here, very diverse audience of his following, and also folks who are his friends here. So we're doing that. We are really making sure that the artists, however they come to us, and we want to present them, that we don't put those parameters around them about what they can do and not do. I don't think that we have to identify art as in what a person is being represented in. I think when we create these spaces for them to put their work there, it doesn't matter the gender or their preference or their color that's in here. The fact that they're able to make art and just something that we want to present here at the Lincoln, then that's the areas that we pull from and work from. So we're open. You're welcome.
As a local artist, born and raised from Columbus, what can we anticipate when you say equity in the arts? Will you be looking or doing anything intentional to, there's a huge disconnect with local artists, especially BIPOC local artists in some of your institutions, so I'm just curious as a local artist, is there, what can we anticipate when you say things like equity in the arts? Will we see ourselves in these institutions? When you think to hire, you know, a lot of times you see when people come in, they bring their people with them. And so as a local artist, as a person in this community, I'm curious what we can anticipate when when you think about the future of equity in the arts in your institutions. Will you see local artists, or will you look at Columbus, or how would that
In many ways, we're already doing that. So with Amina's residency program, there's a space every year dedicated to a Columbus-based artist, and then the other spaces are for national artists. We have a local fellow as part of that component of that program. And then we work with artists throughout the year across different areas of the museum. We commission local artists to work on our fundraising events and to give them visibility through those activities. Each year there's an honoree at our gala, and they receive a commissioned work of art from a Columbus-based artist as their gift. So it's not just in the curatorial department or in the galleries, in our learning department. You know the learning team well.
Yeah.
Local artists work in our studio programs and work with kids and adults alike for our drop-in program. So it's across departments. I think we'll continue to do that and grow the programs as we continue to scale everything that we do. Throughout the summers, we have a late night program called BAM Thursdays, and we invite artists in to not only, in some cases, sell their work, but to do live work. We commission works. They also participate in the programming. There's musicians. So I think that it's a component of many of the departments of the museum, and something that we're committed to and will continue to grow as resources allow.
Thank you.
I would say the same. As I look back, coming to this space, it was said in the selection process that it was important that the director be someone from the community and not for someone who had to be introduced to the community here. It was important that someone from the community would be the face here. And so with that, I have continued that lifting as I climb to make sure that my staff here is from the community, that are creatives, along with their respective areas of expertise, to begin to support me in growing the Lincoln to its potential and really making sure that there is space for them to remain creative. And so inside of the hiring practices that I've have done over the last 2 or 3 years is to maintain that what was given to me as the opportunity and options and access to do that. And we do the same with our internship programs, local students, high school to college, to be able to come and learn about the front of house operations, the back of house operations, and guiding them through this process so that the likeness and the allegiance and the understanding of them as ambassadors to the Lincoln and the historical presence that is here, that they begin to be the carriers of that.
So I would say a couple things we've done at the King Arts Complex since I've been in this role to focus on local artists is when I took on this job, we had a program called Legends and Legacies. And all of our Legends and Legacies were international and national figures. Maya Angelou, Danny Glover, people like that. And I just said, well, I think we got Legends and Legacies in Columbus. And so we've not honored anybody internationally or nationally since then. Latest Legends and Legacies honorees were Hanif Abdurraqib and Hassan Jeffries. So that's one thing we've done to focus on the local scene, and it just has been so meaningful for people, so meaningful. The other thing we've done in terms of local artists is the Elijah Pierce Gallery. Again, we used to always have these, national, and we've got a list of great national artists who have been in our gallery But our shows, since I've been there, have all, and you know this, I'm looking at you because you've been in the shows, have all been local folks. And I would tell you that local artists so much appreciate that. We've had local artists come to us and say, I never thought I would have a chance to show my work in the Elijah Pierce Gallery. And I just thought, well, what a shame. So we had to fix that. So we like national shows. The show that's in there now is a national show, but that happens about once every 4 or 5 years. Most of the time, our shows every quarter is going to be a local artist.
So I would say that, you know, we cannot be everything to everyone. So I'm going to say it out there. But I think the one thing that and the team, so at the WEX in the last, I would say 3 years, as part of one of the important pillars of the Wexner Center for the Arts is our Artists in Residency program. And so through our learning and public practice, they were given a budget to have artists in residency. And I would say that most of them are all been local artists that actually are interested in working with community and that are from the community. So that's one way that we've been doing that. And the other thing is also through our learning and public practice, there's what they call the Path Fellowship, which is specifically for BIPOC communities, where they get to work either for a year or 2 years, which is really a fellowship, working within the department, and to give them this first work experience. And one of our recent Path Fellow just got hired by the WEX to work at the WEX. So, and one of the things that I see it through some of the programs that are being done in terms of premiering the work of, 2 residents from this community, Brotherhood Dance, performing at the WEX within the program of the WEX, and then coming back for a residency, and then a production residency. And also with the programming, I would never say there's too many artists, but there's not enough space in our program to welcome every artist. So how can we be a catalyst or a learning ground for artists, as well as making room for certain artists to be able to get an exhibition? And I think that, whether it is through some of the performance that we do, whether it is through doing master classes or studio visits, when we get curators or artists from away that come to see us, how do we create opportunities for local artists to meet these people? Because whenever you start working with artists are the best to tell you about other artists. So how do we create the opportunities that the local artists get access to the curators or the artists that we're presenting? And also for people to understand that why it's so meaningful for Ming Smith to do a show at CMA is that regardless of everything she's done, doing a show at the CMA and at the WEX is very meaningful for her. And you could say, oh my God, she's a big artist. Well, yet she had never been shown in her hometown. So it's something that's very top of mind. But of course, we'll never be able to give every artist an opportunity. And but how are we mindful to create a multiplicity of opportunities for artists to be in touch, to be in contact, and to benefit from our institutions?
Thank you, ladies. Thank you. Can you give these ladies a round of applause? These weren't easy questions. No, I really appreciate you all for having the courage to sit here and have this moment. My name is Shelby Toon, and I am thankful to be your moderator today. And this opportunity was absolutely historic, in my opinion, and a fantastic opportunity for all of us. So thank you for your words.
Thank you.
Thank you, Susan.